Nestled in the quiet town of Willow Creek, where everyone knew each other's names and secrets rarely stayed hidden for long, lived Grace Mitchell. At 28 years old, Grace was known for her warm smile, her soft voice, and her unwavering kindness. She had been married to Daniel, a hardworking mechanic, for 5 years. Together, they dreamed of building a family, a dream that had seemed almost impossible after years of heartbreak and failed attempts. So when Grace finally became pregnant, the entire town celebrated with her. Neighbors dropped off casseroles, her church hosted a small gathering in her honor, and Daniel couldn't stop talking about becoming a father. For months, their small home buzzed with hope and joy, but not every story of joy is free of shadows. The night Grace went into labor, the sky was heavy with rain. Thunder rolled in the distance as Daniel rushed her to the hospital. Grace held his hand tightly, her knuckles white with both fear and excitement. Hours passed in a blur of contractions, nurses moving swiftly and the cold, sterile smell of antiseptic filling the room. Then everything went wrong. Grace remembered the doctor's grave face, his tone heavy with finality. "I'm so sorry," he said. "The baby didn't make it. She was stillborn." The words sliced through Grace's heart like a knife. She felt the world collapse around her. Daniel broke down beside her, clutching her hand as tears streamed down his face. The room spun, her ears rang, and before she knew it, Grace had slipped into unconsciousness. When she woke hours later, her arms felt unbearably empty. There was no soft cry, no tiny hand gripping her finger, only silence and the unbearable weight of grief. In the weeks that followed, Grace drifted through her days like a ghost. Friends tried to console her. Daniel tried to be strong, but she saw his quiet breakdowns when she thought she wasn't looking. Everyone said time would heal, but Grace knew time could never fill the void left in her heart. And yet, something didn't feel right. 2 weeks after leaving the hospital, Grace received a bill in the mail. It listed medications she didn't recognize and charges for infant care. Confused, she called the hospital, but the receptionist brushed her off, telling her it was likely a clerical error. But then came the dream. One night, Grace woke in a cold sweat after dreaming of a baby crying in a room filled with white walls. She could almost hear the lull of a woman's voice singing softly, though she couldn't make out the words. The dream was so vivid, so real, that Grace couldn't shake it. And then just a few days later, she was walking downtown when she froze in her tracks. Across the street, a woman was pushing a stroller. Nothing unusual, except Grace swore she heard the same cry from her dream. Her heart raced. She couldn't see the baby clearly, but something deep inside her screamed that child was hers. Shaking, Grace convinced herself it was just grief playing tricks on her. But the unease only grew stronger. The turning point came when her best friend Leela stopped by with groceries. Leela, who'd been by Grace's side through every moment of her pregnancy, hesitated before speaking. "Grace, I don't know how to say this, but something's off. I went to the hospital last week with my niece, and I overheard 2 nurses talking. They mentioned a baby girl in the ICU who matched your due date. They said the mother wasn't visiting, and Grace, the description sounded like your baby." Grace's blood ran cold. She couldn't believe it. Could it be true? Had her daughter really survived? Why would the doctor lie? Determined to uncover the truth, Grace and Leela returned to the hospital that night. The building was quiet, the hallways dimly lit. With her heart pounding, Grace crept through the maternity ward, her footsteps echoing against the tiled floor. They slipped into the ICU, where tiny lives fought for survival in clear plastic cribs. And then she saw her. A baby girl with chestnut brown curls and soft caramel skin. Just like Grace's. Tears welled in her eyes as her heart recognized what her mind could barely process. "That's my baby," she whispered, her voice trembling. But before she could reach out, a nurse entered the room. Shocked to see Grace, the nurse tried to usher her out, but Grace refused. She demanded answers. Her voice, once gentle, now shook with fury and desperation. Finally, under pressure, the truth began to unravel. The doctor who had delivered Grace's baby was under investigation for illegal adoptions. Vulnerable mothers, especially those who struggled financially or emotionally, were told their babies hadn't survived, only for those infants to be secretly sold to desperate families willing to pay. Grace's world shattered all over again. But this time, grief gave way to determination. The days that followed were a whirlwind of police reports, investigations, and media frenzy. The town of Willow Creek was rocked to its core as more mothers came forward, each with her own tragic tale of lies and stolen children. It took months of legal battles, but Grace finally held her daughter again. She named her Hope, because that's what had carried her through the darkness. Daniel, broken by both loss and betrayal, stood by Grace's side, though their marriage would never be the same. The scars ran deep. But for Grace, the love she felt for her daughter outweighed the pain of the past. In the years that followed, whispers lingered in Willow Creek. Some said Grace was lucky. Others said she was cursed to live with the memory of betrayal. But one thing was certain. Grace Mitchell would never forget the night the doctor told her her baby was stillborn, and the haunting truth she uncovered when she refused to accept it.